From Memorial High School to the University of Houston, Reid Gettys joins us, former Houston guard, and of course tonight the Cougars trying to keep their dream alive and maybe be the second team from the Big 12 with Tech winning that dramatic game last night. Reid joins Paul Catalina, Craig, and David Smoak. Reid, thank you very much for your time. It's been a while since you played, but this is your alma mater. This is who you love. How much do you get to watch them? And then secondly, do you get nervous at all when they're playing in a game like this?
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. Glad to join you guys. I get to see them a lot. I still call. I call not all of their ESPN Plus games, but most of them, which is a perfect amount of games for me. But also a great way to still feel involved and get to know the kids. And the answer to your question is I get really nervous. I've been texting my son. I just got done texting my son about how we defend Braden Smith on the ball screens. He and I are coming up with different strategies. Nobody's asked us outside of anyone not named Gettys, but he and I've come up with a pretty good strategy.
Have you told Kelvin Sampson of this yet?
No,
okay.
No.
Here's
Here's the deal. That kid, if y'all have been watching Purdue, he may be the best point guard in the country. I mean, he is great. But I'm just telling you, we're not going to get beat by a point guard. Now, we might get beat by Cooper Flagg and their 7'2" center, but the way we defend and the way our perimeter kids defend, as great as Braden Smith is, that's not who's going to beat us.
How would you describe, if you were playing against a Kelvin Sampson defense, how would you describe that in maybe some other way? Rabid dogs, like a wasp nest? Well, how would you describe playing against them?
So my best point of reference is, and this is going way back, and none of you guys will remember, but anybody listening with gray hair will remember the Smother Brothers from Arkansas and how great they were. Darrell Walker and Alvin Robertson. And they just, I mean, you could be dribbling down the floor and think that you're still dribbling and suddenly look down and the ball's not there. It is unbelievable. and then my other comparison is that maybe the best defensive team I've ever seen. And there's a big exception to my analogy here, but the Georgetown team that beat us in the NCAA championship, now they had Ewing on the back end of it, but I'm telling you, those guys, they made you uncomfortable. I mean, from the opening tip. I remember, I had David Wingate guarding me, and I thought, okay, I'll tire him out. Well, that's not going to work. And I thought, okay, I'm going to run him off a screen. Well, that didn't work. And then I thought, okay, I'm going to be physical with him. That didn't work. And eventually I got 2 fouls called because I just put my hands in the middle of his chest and just shoved him. They just make you uncomfortable, and that's what this U of H team does. I remember I called the BYU game, and they were coming in with Yegor Dimon, a 6'9", European kid, and everyone's telling me, oh, he's a first-round pick. And I'm like, he is going to get destroyed. And he got destroyed because you have to come in being prepared to be uncomfortable. And the problem is you can't prepare for that. You can't simulate it in practice. And we used to, when we'd get ready to play Arkansas, we would scrimmage against 6 guys. And that's what it feels like.
Wow.
That you're double teamed and you look out the double team and nobody's open and you skip a pass and they're closed out, not on the pass, but on the catch. And you just want to stop and go, wait a second, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's only 5 guys out here, but God, it feels like there's 6 or 7 guys.
What a brilliant thing to do is practice against 6, because that's what it feels like you're playing against.
It's exactly what it feels like. And you just have a roamer. What's amazing about U of H is that they'll hard double teams on the ball screens, and they'll double team posts. Purdue's big guy doesn't handle double teams very well, which I anticipate will be a big key tonight. But it's amazing because normally when you double team, the first pass, good defensive teams can take away the first pass. Great defensive teams can take away the second pass. U of H is the only team I've ever seen that can take away the first, the second passes and close out on the skip passes. And you're like, well, crap, how'd they do that? And our sophomore kid, JoJo Tugler, I said it early in the year, when we were still playing, I don't know, terrible teams that were just terrible. I said he's the most energetic. He may be the best defensive player in the country. He's 6'7", 6'8". He's got a wingspan of 7'6", and he's like a bolt of electricity. I've never seen somebody more active on the floor. And half the time he doesn't know what he's doing, but he can make up for it. He's the key. So anyway, as you can tell, I'm really high on him. I pick him every year to be in the Final Four, and this is the first time that I picked with my head, with my heart and my head.
Yep.
So tonight should be fun.
We've watched him, obviously, in the Big 12, and one of the young men that has had a brilliant year, and he was a hell of a player, and didn't get as much time when Baylor won the national title in 21, but L.J. Cryer, that game he had Saturday night, there were other games when he's hit clutch free throws, but I thought that was one of his better moments, and he's had a bunch of them.
Yeah, he's had a bunch of them. He has just been, and I don't know why he left Scott, and I don't fully understand because there's two coaches in America that do the best job at developing kids, and that's Scott and Kelvin. Now, they couldn't be more polar opposite. Programs, could not be more opposite. And so I don't know why LJ thought he needed to make the change. Sorry for Scott that he did. I'm thrilled for us he did. He has been, man, what an incredible young man. And he's grown into this quiet leadership role. And he when he first showed up, he was deferring too much and he shied away from being the man. And he didn't have to be with who we've had in the past. But even at the start of this year, so many times I would leave a game and he'd have 18 points and I'd leave thinking, yeah, we could have done more. Man, has he developed it? He's been I'll tell you the best story about him is I'm calling a game and it was maybe in December and a Big 12 official that, has called games for 15, 20 years. He's standing in front of the table and LJ shooting a free throw or something. And it live in the game, he turned around and looked at me, reached over the table and put his finger on, my notes spread out, put his finger on LJ's name and just smiled and went, wow. And I thought, okay, that's pretty cool, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely really cool.
That's a pretty cool endorsement.
Reid, I think he just wanted to be at home. I mean, more or less, his family wanted at home. He wanted to be at home, and that was the crux of it, and probably some NIL too. That could have been a better offer.
Yeah, I've heard that, but we don't have a bunch of NIL money. We don't have the kind of money you guys do.
Yeah.
It's like, are you kidding me?
Yeah. So,
but here's the deal. Kelvin coaches those kids so hard. I mean, you got to really want to be here.
Mm-hmm.
And every time we recruit a kid, I go, yeah, well, let's see. Let's see if he can take it.
And I'll tell you, I think we were all a little bit surprised that he took to it so well. Because of the different styles. I was a little bit surprised.
I agree.
Yeah, I was. Just because of the style that I think he kind of wanted to play. When we heard he was going to Houston, it was more like, oh, well, I mean, that's not, and again, it just worked out. It just worked out.
Yeah, it's been a perfect fit. He is incredibly underrated. His on the ball defense has been excellent. I mean, and I anticipate he and Uzan and Emmanuel. I think everyone will take a turn on Braden Smith tonight. But I have been so impressed with him as a young man, and his what he's brought to this team, and he is beloved. I mean, man, people talk about him with a reverence, and that's unusual for somebody who's by nature as quiet as he is.
You
He's
mentioned
not not demonstrative. He doesn't get emotional, but man, he is. I'm a big fan of LJ.
Yeah, if you see an emotional on his face, it's like a rarity. You better take a picture of it because it's just kind of more of a blank stare and not a negative way. Juwan Roberts, smooth as silk. I know that's like Kelvin's other son that he didn't have. But the guy also, and I'd love to talk about, he just looks like he's always so smooth. And I've always talked about a lefty. He's hard to find and handle. And Emmanuel Sharp seems to be, where you mentioned Tugler about what he does, but is Emmanuel Sharp kind of the straw that stirs the drink?
But for a busted ankle, and he played through it for about 4 weeks. I may not have it exact right. He'd have been the Big 12 Player of the Year. I'm telling you, he was playing at a level where he was maybe 1 or 2 in the country in 3-point shooting. He's the most physical, tough kid. And it's funny, Kelvin describes how he says, oh, yeah, he falls hard. I was like, he what? Yeah, he falls hard. I'm thinking he falls hard. And then you watch him play, and he just splats when he hits. And it's the funniest thing I've ever seen. But so he's number 1 or 2 in the country in 3-point shooting. He excels at drawing contact, and he's a 90% free throw shooter. And he is our best defender. That kid is, I did not anticipate him developing into what he's developed into. And you look at him, he's not ripped and cut like LJ or even Milos. You look at him, he's not pudgy, but he doesn't look the part. That kid will get by you in the blink of an eye. And he is, I don't know that I can say he's our best player, but I'm just telling you, but for that ankle injury, he'd have been the Player of the Year.
Houston has been to the Final Four. Of course, you were a part of the clump of them in 82, 83, 84, but 21, they were in the Final Four. In fact, LJ was on that Baylor team. Is even the word thirsty for winning this thing the right word for Houston?
I don't know. We've been there 6 times. So Elvin Hayes and Don Chaney went twice. We went 3 times, and then the most recent group went. And I'll be honest with you, you make it to the Sweet 16, and any of the 16 teams can win it. You get to the Final Four, and you're playing with house money. Mm-hmm. The best team doesn't always win. The best team's going to win is Duke, but the best team doesn't always win. And so I don't. It's funny because at the start of the season, people are like, "Hey, we're gonna make it to the Final Four." I was like, "Dude, tap the brakes. Look, let's get through the Big 12 and let's get in the tournament." But if you're gonna measure success, by making it to the Final Four, then you're gonna be really, really frustrated. And if you're gonna measure it by winning the thing, then come on, man. That's so the answer to your question is I don't sense that. I do sense that these guys they have the ability to win it. But you gotta be good and you gotta be lucky. And everybody's like, oh, you don't have to be lucky. Yeah, you do. Jamal Shedd twisting his ankle in the first half against Duke. Mark Vassar, twisting his ankle. Terrence Arsenault tearing his Achilles. Like, yeah, you do. You got to be lucky. And so far, right now, we're healthy. So it's going to be a really fun run. I don't know if we can. I think we can beat Purdue, but man, I keep looking down at Rick Barnes' Tennessee team, and man, that's going to be a basketball game.
When you guys have Phi Slamma Jamma reunions, do you have to remind everybody about you were pulling the weight and being the guy who, if it wasn't for you, no one would have the basketball?
Yeah, I carried those guys.
Listen, I know that Hakeem Olajuwon and Clyde Drexler and all this are household names, but they wouldn't be without you, Reid.
Hey, I spent my entire career going, yeah, I'll get you next time. Yeah, no, I'll get it to you next time. I was like, Reid, did you not see me? I was open. Yeah, dream. I'll get it to you next time. My entire career was okay. Yeah, Clyde. I got you. I saw you. I got you next time.
I love watching Akeem Olajuwon play basketball. I was in the Tyler, East Texas market for like 30 years. Guy Lewis, of course, was from ARP, Texas. Legendary. Did a few sit-down interviews with him. What kind of an impact did he have on you? And obviously, he had a certain style compared to what you see now with Houston and Kelvin Sampson.
Yeah. Golly, what a great question that we could spend an hour on. It's amazing because you if you ever listen to Otis Birdsong, who look, Elvin's the greatest that ever played at U of H, and Akeem is 1B, if not 1A. But before you get to any of the other great ones, it's Otis Birdsong. And you hear Otis Birdsong talk about the impact that Guy Lewis had on his life and the role he played and the discipline, which is not a word that is usually associated with Coach Lewis and his teams, but just the impact he had as a man on this young black kid. Everyone, Elvin and Don Chaney integrated the South along with Haskins' team at UTEP. But at the exact same time was Chaney and Elvin. But you talk about the racial challenges and you just listen to the love that Otis Birdsong has for Guy Lewis. And I tell everybody, I feel the same way. I was a rich white kid from Memorial, and he had the same impact on my life. And the fact that he could take, the most unathletic kid that ever played at U of H, and he sat me down. I was struggling with trying to fit in. He said, "Hey, Reid, you do you. Let me put it all together." And I'm thinking, man, how am I going to be on the floor with Clyde Drexler and Akeem Olajuwon and Larry Mishaw and Mike? I was like, I can't fit in here. And he just looked at me and said, "Look me in my eyes. You do you. I'll put it together. I'll figure it out." And man, it's just amazing. It's amazing that I got to be a part, that God picked me up and put me on a team that now 42 years later, people still talk about.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, come on, man, that's not real.
By the way, one of our viewers, Christopher Myers, said he's a fraternity brother of yours and wanted me to say hi to you.
All right, man. That's a small world. It's been a minute.
Yeah, it has been, but I wanted to make sure that I passed that along. He sent me a text and wanted to throw that up with you. And Reid, thanks for coming on. Really, really appreciate it. Love to see if Kelvin can take this, obviously win tonight and then move on. And then Texas Tech in the Big 12 with a couple of teams, if Houston can win, and just see what happens this weekend into the Final Four. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, good talking to you guys.
Reid Gettys, former Houston guard, part of that Phi Slamma Jamma, 3 consecutive Final Fours, as he mentioned. A couple of years they went with Elvin Hayes and Don Chaney, and now trying to get there. They were there in 21, and now trying to get there. But they got to win tonight and then again this weekend to be a part of that. Retired stockbroker